yesterday from Banterface versus Glory, which was a very tense matchup. So if you didn't get a chance to watch that, when you've got some time, make sure to watch the VOD of that one, definitely. But we do see the players are just about getting ready to go into the first game. Here we go, Sottle. Nalguidan versus Gaby. Druid versus Rogue. Elimination on the line.
Elimination on the line, a spot in the semi-finals of the World Championship on the line as well. Nalguidan staring at Jerry in the opening hand, Gaby staring at Field Contact and a Divine Shield in the opening hand here as well. Gaby choosing to keep onto that. As I was saying, this is one of the ways you can really punish Druid for that lack of removal early on. Nalguidan is just taking his time. He's just going to hold on to Jerry as expected, throw the rest away. Double Brain Freeze, not ideal for follow-ups for Gaby. They do pair nicely with the Field Contact, but I think just one drops Octobot, Cult Neophyte was probably the priorities going into that mulligan, having kept the Field Contact.
Obviously going to choose not to go max tempo turn one here for Gaby, as a hero power would deal with them pretty easily. But you are right, I think he's in need of follow-up. Does have the Org Merchant now if he just wants to snipe the Jerry and then kind of force a turn 3 hero power. Oh, okay. A big question, is this worth the coin, Sottle?
I think he might just dagger here and then go into Field Contact, Divine Shield the turn after, using the coin there. That way he'll be going into his opponent's 4-mana turn. And the ability for like Hero Power plus Null or Hero Power plus Owl or Lunar Eclipse plus either of those cards to deal with a Divine Shielded Field Contact is pretty slim at that point. And then he can pop off a little bit with Cult Neophyte, Prize Plunderer, etc., the turn after. That's how I would be looking at this opening. We'll see what Gaby chooses to go with here.
Yeah, always difficult, isn't it? When you want to be more aggressive, to hold back a turn is hard, even if it's correct. Because you think, well, all I'm doing now is killing a 2-1. I could have done that and had 2 minions on the board this turn, right? Like that's a whole extra turn of potential attacks going forward. But we can see it would have been answered pretty easily here from Nalguidan, and he doesn't even have the overgrowth yet anyway. While Nalguidan's deciding, I do have a question for you, Sottle. Wildheart Guff with Celestial Alignment in hand, is this almost, I'll say almost always to just cover all bases, a Celestial Alignment first almost no matter what, unless you're literally about to die, I guess, and you need the armor? Or is there any way that Wildheart gets played initially?
It can happen, yeah, I think it can definitely happen, especially if, you know, because Wildheart Guff does naturally ramp you for 1, right? So 5 into 7 actually curves naturally if you want to do it that way, and if you have no other ramp, it might just be a little bit slow to be hanging on until Celestial Alignment. So, you know, Wildheart Guff is a card that you like to use as a luxury, but sometimes you do just have to use it as a wild growth, right, to get you into those later turns. Ah, yes, Gaby entering his Mind Palace. This is a new turn up for the books. I'm very interested. I was just kind of silent, like breaking it down, where Gaby, as expected, took the turn off to dagger up. That's what I expected to happen. However, he also then chose not to dagger the 2-1, which, suggested to me that this was not going to be Field Contact Divine Shield going into the next turn, because if the play was Field Contact Divine Shield, he would definitely be daggering the 2-1. So then doing it last turn just means you're taking 2 extra damage. That wouldn't make any sense. So instead, Gaby diverting here, taking the Cult Neophyte turn, trying to block the overgrowth, hard block the overgrowth, because you can create the argument, right, that Field Contact Divine Shield also blocks overgrowth, because if they're overgrowthing into that, you get a full turn of Field Contact, so cool. But he's choosing to do it the actual hard way with Cult Neophyte, actually disallowing Nalguidan from being able to play the overgrowth whatsoever.
I do like this because this is like the slower approach, but looking at this from Gaby, he has Field Contact, he has Shadow Step, he's got multiple ways to proc the Field Contact as well, mana allowing of course, so he could even arguably take a Field Contact Shadow Step turn if nothing doesn't look great going forward, because right now he just saw the double Eclipse as well, so that might make him more okay with leaving a Divine Shield field contact on the board. But for me, maybe I'm too scared. But for me, I'd look at the Shadow Step and be like, well, no matter what happens, you really want to Shadow Step that field contact, right? Oh,
yeah,
Octo as well. Huge.
And this is the difference, right? Like, this is new Druid versus old Druid. Nalguidan used up Lunar Eclipses on the previous turn, so against old Druid, you'd be like, oh, sick, leave my field contact on the board. That just lives. But with Owls and Gnolls in the new build, you know that is still too dangerous, so you just Shadow Step it back to your hand. Only going to cost you the princely sum of 1 mana on the following turn, and of course the usage of that Shadow Step, which can be relevant in this matchup. This matchup doesn't tend to be defined too often by the actual huge end-of-game burst OTK combos from the Rogue. It tends to be about just sticking boards and annoying chip damage throughout the course of the game. But if it does get to that point, of course, using a Shadow Step is a significant chunk of damage lost.
Looks like Gaby's looking at the contact. I'm going to start popping off. Going to save the Octobots for now for one, better reductions, but also I imagine there's always that Celestial Alignment on the brain, right? Against this deck, once you start hitting that, 6, 7-ish mana, you're worried about being alignment at, like, every single turn for the rest of the game, basically, until it happens. Probably thinking about just saving the Octo for that and just start pushing the threats forward. Now, if he does choose, or well, he has chosen to have the Divine Shield field contact, it says to Nalguidan, well, 9 times out of 10, you have to choose between killing the field contact or playing Celestial Alignment.
Exactly, yeah. There is a very popular play you can make in this kind of situation where if you have at least a strong-ish, a firm-ish read on Celestial Alignment from the opponent, you can just put an Octobot on the board, right? And then if they play Alignment, you spend your 1 mana on Penflinger or an Org Merchant and just discount your whole hand straight away. Gaby had half of that play available, but it wasn't good because even if he played an Octobot on board, he didn't at that point have a way to proc it for 1 mana on the following turn if he got hit with Celestial Alignment. So instead chose to continue to draw with the Shroud.
And it's also one of the problems as well, isn't it, where if Alignment comes down, there's a chance that another minion comes down, right, and can just kill the Octo anyway.
Absolutely.
So it's a little bit risky. It's definitely cool when it works, but I think, at least for the point Gaby's at in the game, it is a little bit too much to ask. You can see there the Null 0 mana, but Nalguidan choosing to leave the field contact up, going for the alignment. There's Scabs.
As what I was talking about earlier, Gaby has, I would say, failed to get monstrous pressure through in the early game, which is the plan A. So what you really want to do, Nalguidan's had a very decent defensive draw with Lunar Eclipses and the like, being able to pick this apart. So now he does have to divert back to plan B, and that Scabs is absolutely core to that plan B.
Meanwhile, though, Nalguidan is doing the thing. He's got Guff down now. He's going to be able to effectively double nourish this turn, whichever way he wants to do it. He still has, I believe, the card draw on the left that you can see. I think he hovered then to start cycling heavily through the deck. He has all the options in the world, especially going into next turn. But I think the big deal here is, okay, second null. He can kill the field contact if he wants to. It was very likely draw into something, but, until he does draw into something, that field contact's living.
Yeah, and now I think that Scabs might still just end up being a little bit too little too late for Gaby in this position, because Nalguidan's post-alignment was so powerful just in terms of ramping and gaining resources that we are probably just looking at a straight-up OTK from Nalguidan on the following turn.
Yeah, now there is Octo Procto. If Gaby wants to do something with that, does have the double sort of free, what will be free brain freeze as well. But again, the issue is this newer form of Druid can OTK you from hand, which is the big fear, right? It's not like, oh, well, I've got big minions to contend with every turn, but maybe with Scabs I can do it. But no, this is please don't just kill me from hand next turn.
Looking at some weird stuff like Octo, Procto, play the other Octo, and then you have a 0 mana Secret Passage, but the problem at that point is I think you'd already had 0 mana at that point in every world, and then your Secret Passage would be drawing you 1 mana cards. Because at that point, if you still had 1 mana remaining, you could then have the second unprocced Octo on board for your secret passage and then get like 4 more 0 mana cards out of the second secret passage. But yeah, which was not going to work out. Gaby had to go for something significantly more underwhelming, significantly less whelming. That means Nalguidan has just got all the time in the world here to try and get something going with the Mr. Smite OTK at the end of this. I believe he still has 1 Solar left remaining in the deck for potentially that survival of the fittest, and 1 Jerry, I believe, hanging around in there as well.
I can confirm, yeah. 1 Solar, 1 Jerry. And infinity mana, basically, at this point, right? I wonder if it's even possible for him to spend all of his mana this turn.
Oh, and the Moonlit is in hand, and that means that the Jerry is still in deck as well, right? So he can start duping Pirates for more OTK potential as well.
And guaranteed, right? Because there's only 3 cards left, 2 minions left.
Yep.
Gotta be scrappy with scraps.
Pirate, Solar Survival, Mr. Smite, boom, bap, dead.
Yeah, he started doing the majority of this turn on 6 mana. He is now on 4 mana. Okay, 3 now. But yeah, that is just going to be the game. Nalguidan takes game number 1 with a very convincing Druid victory there. I will say the very early double lunar eclipse was a pretty big deal, and I think we even saw a eyebrow raise from Gaby as he saw the double removal turn from Nalguidan, something you generally not expecting, and obviously bought Nalguidan a ton of time in that matchup.
Yeah, and I'm honestly surprised to see Gaby rocking up to this World Championship without a Druid in his lineup himself, to the point where I misspoke earlier, saying, that was ironic, saying that the Druids were going to get out of the series, right? Because I'm just so used to Gaby turning up to Grandmasters or Masters Tour with Celestial Druid, running through people, you know, that clip that is now going to go down in Hearthstone lore forever with the 5 green rags or whatever it was for lethal at the end of the game against Yala. That's just kind of what's become iconic for Gaby at this point. I do find it a little strange that for me, one of the highest raw power level decks in the game has not found its way into Gaby's lineup, and I think yet again it comes out and just shows itself to be a real powerhouse in this metagame, right? Because particularly in the meta we've ended up here in Worlds, which again, I want to reiterate my point from day one, just because this is what these 8 players have submitted to Worlds does not mean this is what the meta is. This is our micro meta for the World Championships, right? Like, this is what people have ended up with. And because it is Garrote Rogue, OTK Demon Hunter, Celestial Druid, those 2 of those decks, OTK Demon Hunter and Celestial Druid, are combo decks that disrupt other combo decks, right? So I think they go up in estimation when you're expecting other people to bring combo decks, because Glide and Celestial Alignment have the power to be disruptive against all of the other decks that are trying to do similar things. And it does feel a little bit like Garrote Rogue is the one that's found wanting, because it can't really disrupt the others. Cult Neophyte is fine, but it's not quite the powerhouse disruption that it used to be, because I think a few of these decks have started to lean a little bit more carefully into minions as well, right? Druid with Gnolls and Owls can respond to Neophyte turns in ways that they never really used to be able to do. So Glide and Celestial Alignment are the kings of disruption right now, which is why for me, Druid was a core component of basically any lineup I could see being put together for this tournament. I'm very surprised to see Gaby not going with it.
And it must have been really difficult for all these players as well, because it's not like, oh, it's another week of GM, I'll submit this. If it doesn't work, I think it might work, but if it doesn't work, I'll play again next week. All the pressure to submit one lineup for your chance to become a world championship can actually make you make incorrect or very correct decisions, right? We look at the Hunter and obviously the Owl Warlock, which isn't as widespread as maybe people thought it would have been from Gaby. He may well still think that's the correct decision. That's absolutely fine. But maybe he was thinking of Druid and then got persuaded to go Hunter. We've been saying how good Hunter is. Maybe he was thinking of something else. Like, a lot of pressure has been put on all these players to just submit those 4 decks when currently in the meta, there's actually a lot of options as to where to go, and we see that across the board. So we'll see how Game 2 plays out here as we start it. Nalguidan on the top on that Pirate Warrior, another sort of outside pick based on this micro meta.
Mulligan not bad here, smooth enough curve for Nalguidan. Gaby does hit the Cutlass on 1, which could could hit a Swindle, ends up hitting a Shroud, which he will absolutely take in that position as well. I think the only real negative there was if he would tradable into like a Brain Freeze, for example, and discount that instead of the Swindle. But this is a fine outcome with a discounted Shroud of Concealment for sure, especially now having picked up that field contact as well.
Yeah, not a bad start for Nalguidan either, though. He has obviously the quest, but then 2-drop, 3-drop, 2-2-drops, right? Like, that's looking really good. He's got Shiver the Timbers in case he needs to deal with an unprocced Octobot on that odd outcome there. So he's got everything he can possibly need to start ramping this quest, because all you really want to do as Pirate Warrior is get quest completion as fast as possible whilst trying to retain some level of pressure, some level of board sense. But in general, this is looking good, even though it's not the perfect set of opening pirates, right? With the 2-3 just being a 2-3, with the Foxtail Freebooter not having a weapon to push the extra damage. But still, I think as long as you have playable pirates in the early game, you are pretty happy.
Agreed. Tough turn here from Gaby, and I think you see it on his face. He has a couple of options. He can just continue to draw a few more cards with like comboing Swindle this turn, either with the Penflinger or something else, or he can trade away the Rustdrop Viper, or just play a Spider Tank in this position as well, which I suppose is an outside legal play, but I do think Rustdrop Viper is a low-key, somewhat useful card against Pirate Warrior to have in your hand for the early game turns. So no great surprise in the end to see him going with the combo Swindle turn, which was certainly my first instinct going into it.
Now, which 3-dropper does Nalguidan want? You can go for more damage, but I imagine getting Cargo Guard down is better. It's earlier in the game, which means it's less chance that Gaby can cleanly deal with this. And gaining the additional armor isn't to be ignored in this matchup. It's not often that the rogue can't do the Garrote stuff if they really want to or can get to that point, but gaining the extra armor just gives you a little bit more leeway and makes Gaby have to do like a very good combo as opposed to a passable one.
Yeah, small amounts of armor are so much more irritating to play against as Garrote Rogue now than they used to be. It used to be a formality, right? As long as they didn't get above 40, like it was rare that you cared how much they picked up. So you had to be straight up like Control Warrior levels of armor gain, right? Solar Cenarian levels of armor gain to be able to stop it. But now, just being irritating, just getting yourself above 36 can be a very, very problematic situation for the nerfed Garrote Rogue to deal with.
Gaby at the point now where he could really do with an Octobot, might start trading away some of these minions. Does have to worry about just taking this 4 damage a turn as well. It's a little bit scary.
Penflinger step contact, yeah. There's a couple of lines that didn't quite work with like field contact, prize plunderer, step the prize plunderer, that kind of thing. That wasn't really a nice break point. There was a very effective clear with the prize plunderer, but I think it used too many resources without putting your field contact in play. Would have left you with a fairly dead hand overall. So I think by process of elimination, Gaby just kind of got rid of all the bad plays and ended up with the only one that made sense.
Here now, I think Harbour Scamp looks like a good start here for Nalguidan. Just get another pirate choice. The 2 pirates he has are fine, but probably not what he's after. Might be looking for a Sword Eater very soon, honestly, just to put another high health minion on the board and actually just say, well, now you need to stack a Plunderer and Shadow Step it, right? To be able to kill like a 4 health and 5 health minion.
Yeah, and let's, not forget the implications of that in the long term as well, because 1 step has already been used on a contact. If you want to shadow step a prize plunderer to deal with a 5 health minion, 6 health minion, whatever might come down here, that's both steps gone. And this is a cargo guard living again. So this is 36, which is now the 6x6 interval that is required to get all of that damage through. It is a little bit, overstated sometimes, because in the games where Rogue does very well, they do tend to win board and actually push a little bit of damage here and there, particularly against some of these aggro decks, right? And particularly now, right on time, thank you Hearthstone, scriptwriters on point as always. Now Shadowcrafter Scabs is a factor in the metagame, because you can turn basically any board state into net +8 damage for you against most decks, right? Because all their stuff goes back to their hand, you get 2/4 attack stealth minions. So that can make a real mess of any armor setups that your opponent might have.
Yeah, Pirate Warrior does have some level of defense against the 4-2s though, because of cannon shots being a big deal at that point. But Gaby choosing to say enough is enough, let's go, even without an Octobot prop, is pretty huge here, because he's cleaned up a lot of the board, which means he isn't just saying, I'm always going to Scabs next to, well, not next turn, but ASAP, basically, no matter what. He's choosing to try and take control of the board and hopes he can retain it long enough to have maybe a bit more of a tactical Scabs as opposed to an emergency one.
Tactical Scabs is an incredibly amusing phrase, Raven.
Now with a lot of that board cleaned up and the Pirate frozen for Nalguidan, he's a little bit more limited. He does have Whetstone Hatchet, as well as the Fog Sail and Shiver. So he has got enough removal, but it doesn't actually put a lot of presence on board. And if the other option being the Anchorman, and that is just a play it, it's on board, 1 minion, kill one thing, and pass, which probably isn't good enough with a field contact with Divine Shield.
Yeah. I think this is good recognition here from Gaby. It's a very awkward field contact to deal with, but I think he knows there's a decent chance that this is not a hugely impactful turn if time has to be spent with the minions on the other side. The cannon shots do hit the field contact though, which is annoying, but honestly, you know, they were 1 health minions all around, right, in the long run, so it didn't really make a huge difference with that 1 attack weapon swing coming through anyway.
It's tricky as well, because I think in Pirate Warrior, you're always thinking about the stronger weapons, but the Whetstone Hatchet adds up to a lot of combined damage over time, right? It's pushing for 1 every turn, it's adding attack to the minions in hand as well, so I do wonder if this is just a try and push for board again with maybe the Rustdrop Viper to back it up. Oh, there's Octo. Okay, well now we can talk about literally any other outcome here.
Yep, I think Stealth Octo with 4 health will feel very, very secure here from Gaby's side of things. Cannon shots already went off last turn, of course. We saw the second proc of the quest go. And even Cannoneer or whatever, like very few things are going to be able to have any interaction with this whatsoever. So that's just nicely front-loaded.
Only Shiver Their Timbers could target stealth. The big difference here for Gaby. He managed to get the stealth on that Octo, and it's so much safety. And there's just nothing Nalguidan can do about it. I think just Anchorman continue with the plan.
Breaking story. Loot.
We like weapon swing time in here. I think at this point in the game, Nalguidan's looking to get as many of those plus attacks onto Smite as possible. Because although Gaby's looking great, he has the Octobot reduction on a full hand, basically. He's got Scabs, that's great. But Smite coming out of nowhere ends many, many games of Hearthstone. So it is something Gaby does have to be at least aware of or ready for in some respect.
Yeah, certainly that is the scary part now for Gaby, but again, you know, we've been talking about what a great addition Scabs is to this deck, and you see it once more in this case, right? It's just insane, because even just that little splash of armor can be the difference. That one extra turn you need, you get pretty much 1 whole turn from vanishing your opponent's whole board back to their hand, and you then get a potential additional turn from that little burst of armor that you get as well. It's a huge deal.
Keep your enemies
Actually quite like it. The only thing I would have thought about is, should he have killed? Could he have killed, I guess is my question. He couldn't have, that was his first card, right? So he couldn't have done Brain Freeze. I was looking at whether he could have killed the Fog Sail, because that would mean there wouldn't be a clean quest path for Nalguidan in the next turn, or less likely to be one, should I say.
sizzle.
Just going to play out the Viper here. Yeah, I like this. Using the Scab's hero powers makes a lot of sense to me. 9 cards in hand. Octobot back to hand from the bounce. 8 damage loaded up in play is a big, big deal. disallows the freebooter that you were talking about with the brain freeze just by a different method, dealing with the weapon, and also, of course, that's a couple more procs that could be landing on a Mr. Smite, as from Gaby's perspective, and we can see very much could be landing on a Mr. Smite from Nalguidan's perspective.
And this was why I was looking for this Fog Sail to actually be killed, because this is as clean a quest progression as you can get, right? We can see, if that was killed based on the draws Nalguidan had, he could not even play Captain Bukara this turn, which would have been absolutely huge for Gaby.
But I think you're about to see why Gaby was not too fussed about this situation, right? Because with 4 cards now left in deck, with 5 mana still available, and with an Octobot just about to be procced, alongside 11 damage in play, I think Gaby will be running away with this one quite cleanly from here.
Yep, it is looking good, isn't it? Down to 1 card left, all the options in the world, got plenty of mana to get the 2 Garots in.
Yep. Board space for Guild Trader, Garrot, and then whatever 40, you like. Yep, tradable, clear the board space, play a minion, whatever, however you want to do it. It all kills at this point.
I think the only way that could have gone wrong is if somehow he cleared the 2 minions first and then was like, wait a minute.
There we go.
Good recovery there from Gaby. Because at the beginning, it looked rough, right? He was under a lot of pressure, but I think the turn he decided to actually go and fight for board was the correct moment to do so. As it was just about time where he could retain enough health to not be worried about, say, Smite plus another Pirate, or just Smite going on top of a small board. I think he was at about 19 before he played Scabs and when he went off, and I think that's probably the range you're looking at to feel safe.
Yeah, and I think the real key to that one, obviously Gaby has a plan from turn 1 in basically every game of Hearthstone he plays, I'm sure, but I think once he played the Shroud and hit Octobot, that's when you can see the end of the game, right? Because you play your Octobot, it has stealth, that means it probably lives the next turn. If it lives the next turn, you discount your hand once, you play Scabs, you use that essentially as a Shadow Step for your Octobot, and then you have a brand new discount for the next turn, which basically makes your entire hand cost 0, and you're able to do exactly this that you see on your screen now and just turbo everything through using that bonus damage that you get from those 2 extra 4/2 stealths that you do have on board. So I think that was the point where the plan became quite simple from Gaby's perspective, but of course he still had to navigate himself into that position, while, as you were saying, Nalguidan had a very quick and aggressive curve of Pirates himself. It wasn't the dream curve, you know, you didn't get like weapon discount into weapon, into buffs, into just huge amounts of damage going face all the time. South Sea Captain buff it all up, smack you down to 8 by like turn 5. It wasn't that aggressive a Pirate Warrior opening, but you don't get that every game. What you hope to get every game is just being able to play 1 or 2 Pirates every single turn, and that is certainly what Nalguidan was doing. But I think Garrot Rogue certainly has enough in the bag to be able to see off Pirate Warrior. This goes back to my question mark hanging over the head of Pirate Warrior at a high level in World Championship competition. And I don't know whether we specified best of 1 game or best of 1 series as whether Pirate Warrior was a good bring or not, but I might just claim victory already.
Yeah, we'll have to speak to the experts, TJ and Lorinda, in best of 1s. So we'll have to see about that. Maybe get some notes on that later on. But for now, we take a look at Big Hoot Warlock from Gaby here. And a deck that I still have a lot of questions about, because I think us especially saw it struggle a lot when we cast yesterday. But that doesn't mean it's bad, because unless we go into this best of 1 thing very deeply here, it doesn't mean it's bad. It's just that it's feels very one-dimensional, right? It does what it does very well, and it hasn't got much leeway to do anything else. The key parts, of course, being the removal. Again, I think versus Pirate Warrior, if that's the matchup, not sure yet, but versus Pirate Warrior, it's definitely got a good plan because it's got built-in removal as part of the deck. But it does need to then find the Owl. If you're spending mana on life taps whilst the Pirate Warrior is piling on pressure with minions, either you get to kill their minions and try and get to the Owl slower, or you try and get to the Owl and the combo faster, and they're just hitting you in the face. So again, it's you sort of in a problem no matter what here, at least in my experience in this matchup.
Armor Vendor on 1 for Gaby. Double spell opener for Nalguidan, which is...
Throw those away.
Yep. far from ideal. Gaby, yeah, just keeping the Armor Vendor in the middle, no great surprise there. We'll be shocked if we see anything particularly different from what we're expecting here from Nalguidan.
Right. I would imagine Nalguidan throws away all three, right? Because Device Cannoneer is not a minion you want to play as part of your I'm trying to prot the quest. It's something you want to play with a weapon, and then you shoot them a lot. So, he's going to keep. I am...
The dream.
Yeah, really wants to just hit a 2-drop and then just have something to play on curve. I would have mulliganed that every single day of the week.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Particularly when 2 of your bad draws are going back into the deck, so can't be mulliganed into, right? Like, there is a risk when you're mulliganing with Pirate Warrior. It's like, well, this is a Pirate, and if I throw it away, I could get a spell, and that's bad, right? But you're literally throwing away 2 spells that can't come back until the first draw after the mulligan. So, personally, I think I would have gone a little bit more aggressively for 1-drops or 2-drops there in Nalguidan's position.
And weirdly enough, Gaby's winning on board. I know it's only turn 2, but that is a lot of presence on board very early in the game, and something a lot of the time this Warlock does not get to do, right? This is a very strong opening against Pirate Warrior. Maybe because of that, Gaby's going to take the opportunity to just backfire, yeah? He's got the double trade if he wants it, draw 3 cards, and stay ahead on board. Now, this was my issue with keeping the cannon, is that it doesn't often feel like an on-curve play, especially not against a deck that has multiple ways to just kill it. It just runs straight up removal. And now, the likelihood of you drawing other cards to play at this point is so high with this deck that I think now Nalguidan's considering whether he coins 2/2s, whether he plays Man the Cannons and a 2-drop, whether he just plays South Sea Captain as a half throwaway pirate to just progress the quest. But I don't think Cannoneer is in any of those thoughts.
Yeah, very fair. Nalguidan a little slow off the blocks here for sure, giving Gaby plenty of time to get through this early game nice and safely. Blood Mage Touch is able to take care of this captain, and I think you see just an element of despondency creeping into the face of Nalguidan here, as he is really not gaining a foothold on this board as he would be hoping to early on in this matchup, because if you're not winning board early with this deck, you're going to be in trouble later on.
Yeah, and it's the combined efforts, right, where I think as Pirate Warrior in this matchup, if your minions are getting removed early, yes, that's annoying, but you can just play more minions, right, and try and just keep plowing through. But the fact that his minions are being removed and Gaby is retaining minions on board is such a more of an uphill climb, because Nalguidan has to factor in not only the removal from hand from Gaby, but the fact that he has just damage on board to help out with trades as well. Even this, the Drained Soul is just a clean kill here with this Thalnos.
So many.
Even just Drained Soul, he could even tap Drained Soul and then just drop some Armor Smiths, right? Or drop an Armor Smith, should I say.
Yeah, he could. I think he's also considering, you know, what a setup for Tamsin next turn looks like, right? Because if he taps this turn, is he still able to draw 3 cards next turn safely? Should he just be dumping more cards this turn and not tapping to create that hand space for Tamsin later on? There's some options.
Okay. Gonna take the trade with the Thanos. This gives him more options to just rip into the best card in the deck, and you see Nalguidan's response.
That's so perfect. Next turn, he now draws a card up to 8. He plays Tamsin down to 7, draws 3 up to 10, which discounts double Armor Vendor in his hand to be able to dump them out and not overdraw a card. That was the single best draw in his deck off that Blood Mage trade.
Generally speaking, it's the single best draw in his deck in any situation.
Yeah,
the card is so good, but you are right. The fact he could just insta-proc it is huge. Here comes the Defiance Cannoneer, and last, the swing is there for the weapons. Nalguidan does get to push a lot of damage, but I think the fact that Gaby is trying to show us that he just doesn't really care what Nalguidan's doing at this point shows how comfortable he seems to be.
Oh, it's such huge B-Rabbit energy coming off Gaby right now. I just cannot handle it.
And he's singing Never Gonna Give You Up.
Yeah, that's exactly as he confirmed for us all.
Well, those combo pieces look pretty cool.
They sure do.
Hamsin reduced. Even Grimoire's there just for the like insta owl kill if he wants it, right? A really good bonus there that you can just play owl no matter, you know, as long as the owl itself is playable. 0 mana destroyer thing is absolutely what you're looking for. And Nalguidan, yet again, has a board to contend with. It's not a dangerous board, 2 1/3s, but look how slow this feels, right? If you play Zankerman, it kills a 1/3 and draws a card, and then you can maybe coin out a 2-drop, but looks like he's going to go for the Sword Eater and the Bloodsail Raider to just put on more pressure and try and not give Gaby the chance to just be comfortable and just start spamming card draw this game. Okay, that's a free trade there. Going to buff the amount of minions up. Okay. Okay. There's the alpha next turn as well.
Yep.
There is the double counter factor here, I guess, where Nalguidan, I believe, is running a Mutinous, unless I'm going crazy, but Gaby is also running 2 owls. I think, if anything, it would be more of a problem if Nalguidan actually managed to Mutinous the Tamsin at this point, right?
Yeah, if he can get like Tamsin plus big board plus some amount of armor, like eat Tamsin plus get a big board of his own and get some amount of armor, maybe he'll be able to resist a single Phylactery combo, but even then it's still a ton of damage.
Yeah.
Especially since Gaby has already traded the same imps twice now, so he can just instantly get the full board of imps off a single card.
Yeah.
In the box?
Instantly.
Pirate stuff.
Instantly, indeed. Very good.
The juggernaut is under
There's Rikara though. And now the wild card's in play, right? Because I know I've talked about this a lot in the past since this quest came into play.
Ding ding ding! Lost the bingo,
get-
center square! Yeah.
I get wrecked by Captain Rikara every single time. There's more Gore Howls and Mr. Smites than you can shake a stick at when I'm against it anyway.
Owl.
Yeah.
Grimoire.
Thank you for your service.
Absolutely disregarding. There was obviously an option there to... Oh, no, actually, I guess it always is going to work out that way, right? Because the AoE is going to take care of the 2-2 before the death rattle goes off.
Yeah.
I always forget that things happen in that order in a lot of situations, so there was no world not to go face in that position. Just free damage picking up from the 3-3.
Ultimate totem!
Yeah, and because that was not Bulwark of Azeroth, even if that would matter, I'm not going to do the quick numbers, but I'm going to guess maybe even no. That looks like the full combo as far as I can see it, Sol.
Sure does. Yeah, I think this was actually lethal through Bulwark as well.
Yeah, I would assume so. I was just talking before I saw all the minions that are on board as well, because that obviously counts too, but with the double effect of the death rattles.
Right. And there's double Skull Spirits as well, right, with a Moarg, so the minions on the other side just get straight up AoE'd anyway.
Yeah. Even got the Viper in there as well, because it was a smaller imp generation. But yeah, there we go. And watch as 8 appears on the screen many, many times.
Boom! Dead. 2-1 Gaby, and he is now on the hill to be going through to the semi-finals. Nalguidan started the series strong, picked up the first victory, but it has been that Pirate Warrior now 0 for 2 against the Garrote Rogue and the Owl Warlock, and now just the OTK Demon Hunter stepping up to bat.
Yeah, and that's a tough one. We've said it a lot. There's a reason OTK Demon Hunter has basically existed in the meta as long as it's been able to, because it's just that good. We've seen some shenanigans with glides going all the way across the matchup in a mirror match, but overall, it's one of those decks that's, unless someone's building a lineup to try and bully OTK Demon Hunter, it's one of those decks that, at least for me, Sol, I cross off as it's probably going to get a win in most series, right?
Certainly, I mean, it's a very, very, very high power level deck for sure, and has been for quite some time at this point.
Yeah.
Multiple iterations. You know, Quest Demon Hunters in general have just been absolutely fantastic powerhouses in the metagame for a number of expansions and mini sets and so on, continuing to be able to pick up wins. They've been a real favorite deck of Gaby and the other French GMs as well. Blaise as well has been a really big OTK Demon Hunter player. I think hit one of the most ridiculous OTK Demon Hunter lethals I have ever seen, where it's like a turn 5 lethal with like a 6 mana Il'gynoth, like already nerfed Il'gynoth, where he hit like all the perfect discounts off the first 2 quest procs to get like double discounted Il'gynoth, discounted Moog, discounted Felsker. It was absolutely absurd. So we've seen the stuff that this deck can do in the hands of strong players, and I think this was a great bring to the tournament overall. Still perhaps not quite performing to its heights on ladder right now, because of the ever-presence of Trogs on the other side. I guess this is one of the very few decks that can't really compete at all with minions if Trogs come down on the other side. Like, they have to rely on clean kills with Moog or Talented Arcanist. But in this very heavily combo-based meta in the World Championship, the combo deck with Glide just tends to be king, right? And that's the situation we're going to find ourselves in, because now, even if it gets beaten up by the Pirate Warrior, there's still a rogue on the other side for Nalguidan that has to survive all of those potential glides from the Demon Hunter while trying to get to the bottom of the deck.
Yeah, just a reminder, of course, as well, the winner does go on to the semi-finals. The loser is unfortunately done for the World Championship, done for this year, and has to go back and prepare for next year's competitive time. But let's just go in here. Nalguidan on that Pirate Warrior once again. Gaby on this OTK Demon Hunter. And is this just max quest progression? Glide isn't as big of a factor in terms of Gaby affecting Nalguidan with a glide, right, as Pirate Warrior. A lot of the time you're probably happy if your opponent glides you. You get 4 new cards to play with. Pirate Warrior, not something, not really a deck that you hold on to too many cards for anyway. So Gaby going to throw everything away here.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. I think, as we were talking about before, I think Rakara, one of the easier quest rewards to get out of your hand on the same turn that you complete it, just because it can be activated by playing a single cheap pirate on like a turn 7 kind of deal, which is, relatively timely. But if you haven't been getting a lot of aggression through in that time, then, Demon Hunter can get a lot done in the first 6 or 7 turns in the game. So you really have to focus on being as aggressively as possible. Being as aggressive as possible with those early pirates.
And although it's not super common, there are times where you just don't have a 2-drop or a 1-drop pirate in your deck, in your hand, right, to proc and play Captain Rakara. And then the problem is, well, are you supposed to wait, or do you just hope there's not a glide, right? And if there is a glide, well, suddenly you've got no chance, because the deck, once you get to Captain Rakara, is incredibly reliant on that power, right? That quest finish as the way to win games. Okay, now Nalguidan could start stacking armor. It's probably the best 3-drop out of the 3 options. No weapon equipped to gain that permanent +1 attack with. The Privateer is more aggressive, but okay, he's going to go for it. I did wonder if just forcing Gaby to either, or to try and kill a 4 health minion, or just let Nalguidan gain armor is something to consider over that. But Nalguidan chose aggro as the approach.
He did, and I don't mind it, because I think this matchup and the Rogue one are kind of night and day in terms of how much the combo deck has to care about the armor total from the Warrior. Like, they can certainly, I talk about 36 being kind of a tough breakpoint for Rogue to get to these days. 36 is the basic breakpoint for Demon Hunter to get to, the classic double Moog +2 spell damage breakpoint that you see activated in the majority of combos these days. So stacking armor I don't think is really a viable win condition. I do think, though, the threat of a quest reward bulwark of Azzinoth can be a big X factor in this matchup if things get down to that point. So I do think generally just maximum aggression, as you were saying, like 4-3 over a 2-4 in that position, just be as aggressive as possible, makes a lot of sense to me.
Tempo Cannoneer He's going to give him the mana to play the weapon as well, so he does get to swing this and push extra damage. I like it. Here though, Gaby, not starved of card draw because he has Rust Drop Viper, he has this Sigil going off now. Now there's Acrobatics, but I think he did need something to feel a little bit more confident going forward, and he does get Acrobatics, not even necessarily for this turn, but it is there.
Yeah, I think he was trying to do this without the Acrobatics, ends up having to use it anyway. Does get a double discount by over-completing the quest by 1, but doesn't tend to be a huge factor in most situations. Does have discounted Talented Arcanist plus Fellscream Blast now, which could be very nice if he needs to weave that into a tighter turn later on. Like, he might be able to get quest completion plus board clear now because he's hit that particular discount on the Arcanist.
If he's thinking about Coin Viper here, maybe even Coin I-Beam. Because this kind of near, that pushes a lot of damage if that weapon's still equipped.
That is indeed a 7-3 on the other side of the board right now, yes.
And it's a 7-3 he can deal with in multiple ways, right? Whether he plays the Viper to remove the weapon, whether he plays the I-Beam to kill the 3-3, like whatever his choice, he can do it, but it does use the coin, which is something that I think he's, well, clearly decided he wants to retain.
Yep. I think because he knows he has a cheap Arcanist Fellscream, he feels secure about this, right? If third minion comes down, he can clear up 3 minions plus play Glide next turn, right? Which is a pretty sick turn to be able to have. He'll rebound most of this health damage that he takes by just healing for 9 in that position, feel relatively comfortable. And even if he gets hit with the on-curve play of Ron Burgundy, he has a really nice breakpoint to actually deal 6 AoE as well with the current hand as well, right? So I think he recognizes that he has all bases covered in the current position.
Yeah, definitely at the point where Gaby has to do something about this board, but as you quite rightly broke down, he can do something about this board. Even picks up the Tusk Piercer as well, if he can go for it here, but it looks like it's going to be Coin Rust Drop, was that?
Yep.
Okay, so, going to make a strong play for the board, actually, even though these minions don't like the strongest. It's 3 minions versus none right now.
Yeah, I really like this. I think this is strong recognition. We talk about how, you know, the spells are few and far between in Pirate Warrior, and they do tend to get in the way. You do tend to want to throw them away a lot of the time when you face these kinds of matchups. So Moarg as a 2-4 can be very effective indeed. Not as effective as maybe against Paladin, for example, but still, you know, an overstatted minion most of the time against most hands. And just adding a Spider Tank and removing the weapon, I think, takes away a lot of the rebound potential from Nalguidan in this position.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Didn't know whether he was going to go for the man the cannons first to just clear up the majority of the board and then let the cannons clear, or maybe even go face that way, but it did choose to just go for the maximum high roll at that point, I guess.
This will now just be a glide turn. It's just whether Gaby wants to spend the mana now to potentially turn a Illidari Studies into a card draw card that he can draw later, but I think with that I-Beam play instead, he's spotted something just a little bit better. He's able to clear board, win board again, and get that quest completion together with the glide. Very, very nicely done indeed. Only quest step number 2, though. You can see this is a slow quest completion for Gaby by Demon Hunter standards. He has paid a lot of attention to the board in this matchup, but he has been rewarded for that as well. Currently at 30 health and ahead on board against a board-based deck. So yes, he is slow with quest completion. Yes, he is going to be second to complete in this matchup, which is certainly not what you would expect usually, but he has bought himself a ton of time in terms of health and tempo.
But the shenanigans are about to begin, as Nalguidan does have Captain Rukara down, and he'll just be hoping for either decent-sized weapons, big pirate summons, or both, because, again, important to remember, if, say, for example, an Anchorman is summoned from the ship and he plays Smite, that Anchorman gets to go face. So always going to keep an eye on what's summoned, what weapons available, because this burst damage can get very, very silly indeed. For now, though, Gaby's going to try and just get this quest done, but again, he won't be able to and play Kurtrus at the same time, so he's going to be continuing to be a little bit too slow here. Or slower than he wants to be, should I say. Maybe not too slow.
Indeed, too slow does remain to be seen at this point. But it is certainly looking like he will struggle to find the clean turn to land Demon Slayer Kurtrus, right? Like, that's going to be the big problem here.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to see, yes, exactly that attack happen. I'd love to see that, because now he has potential for a big AoE to come down on the same turn, right? Kurtrus, Arcanist, Immolation Aura. Not in that order, ideally, all in the same turn. But now, the Mutinous off the top for Nalguidan could pretty much end this game on the spot. Okay. It's bad, but it's not immediately game-ending.
And in a roundabout way, something we don't say often, the Bulwark of Azeroth was actually probably the best outcome for Gaby.
Yeah, true.
Because he can't OTK this turn, so great, have it now. What's that, 7?
Smite in hand, Pirate about to be spawned. I think Gaby's
Pirate probably about to be drawn, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Going to quit out this one, and that means we are going to game number 5 as Nalguidan evens it up with that Pirate Warrior. Just too much pressure going on there, and Gaby just not getting that smooth Demon Hunter quest progression that we are used to seeing, which means we are going down to Rogue versus Demon Hunter, and we might, just as a spoiler, be talking about the card Glide in this upcoming matchup.
Yes, the matchup does tend to revolve around that mechanically, because, you know, not only can Demon Hunter get hold of Glide, can they set up good glides, can they discover glides, are they dumping cards from one side of their hand in order to make a Glide outcast, but also what the Rogue is doing on the other side is very influenced by playing around Glide as well, right? Like, generally trying to play for tempo by dumping unimportant minions from their hand and trying to reserve card draw cards in hand, reserve card draw cards in deck, so that you know, I tend to use like a blackjack analogy for this. So if you're counting cards in blackjack, you want the deck to be stacked with 10s. That's your goal of it being stacked with card draw cards when you're playing against Demon Hunter. So when they glide you draw a very good recovery hand on average. You draw a Swindle, you draw a Shroud of Concealment, you draw a Field Contact, you draw those cards that are actually able to bounce you back from that position. The worst thing you can do in most situations, if you have any kind of Glide setup read from that position, is just to dump all of your card draw, Swindle, Shroud of Concealment early on in the game, and then just turn 4 Glide, 9 cards turn into 4 cards, and you've already used 3 card draw cards in the early game, right? Because then at that point, you're just not going to recover. You need that bounce back ability in your deck to have it stacked with card draw to be able to continue on past the Glide when it almost inevitably happens to you at some point in the game.
Yeah, you basically play Garrote Rogue in opposite world in this matchup, right? You don't, the normal matchup, you see all the card draw spam to fill the hand. It's completely opposite here, and it is winnable. You know, we talk a lot about Glide being extremely strong against Rogue, and it is, but it doesn't mean that this is just if Gaby draws Glide, the game's over, right? That is not the case, right? We've seen plenty of times various good Rogue players do what you outlined and recover and still win the game, because just because a Glide's been played doesn't mean the Demon Hunter's suddenly super far ahead. It just means a Glide has been played. So we'll see if Nalguidan can fight back. The positive, I guess, in a weird way for both of these players, is that this is a matchup that's been ongoing for a long time now. Yes, there's Scabs is in there or whatever, you can talk about that, but in general the core concepts are the same, which means both players will no doubt be very experienced in how to play it. So it's not like anyone's going to get caught off guard by like a new card or anything like that. It is going to be okay. We both know the strategy. Let's see who can execute.
Yes, but I still do think there is an edge to Gaby in this one. I do think, you know, a lot of Rogue's advantages, a lot of the next level stuff that Rogue has gained in the mini set and in the newest expansion, you know, Blackwater Cutlass, Scabs, all that kind of stuff. Blackwater Cutlass in particular is another strategy that kind of gets shut down by Demon Hunter and Glide, because I think the average quicker OTKs that we're seeing from Garrote Rogue has a lot to do with Blackwater Cutlass, right? Because back before Cutlass was a card, the choke point was almost always playing the actual Garrotes, right? Like, that was the real problem that people would run into. It was the option that could be affected by Cult Neophyte. It was the option that people would be looking to save their preps for, yada, yada, yada. But now, because you trade Cutlass so many times over the course of the game, you end up with a 0/1 mana Garrote in your hand or whatever, and then if that gets hit by an Octobot, sweet, there you're playing them for 0 guaranteed. Glide also removes all enchantments when they get shuffled back in the deck. So every time that happens, every Cutlass trade, every Octobot discount, everything that you've been working on to discount your hand for those eventual OTKs is just reset back to 0, and you're going to have to be drawing them again for full cost.
And it's really tricky as well, because it's not as if it's usual to just say, well, just equip the Cutlass then, because then you won't have that issue. It's like, well, but it's a tradable card. It's very strong in itself as like kind of card draw, right? So it's not as if you necessarily want to just delete the card from the deck if you're considering glide outcomes anyway. But already we are in the game. Sigil is in hand for Gaby, so we'll be happy. He's got some very early card draw along with that acrobatics as well. So far for Nalguidan, though, bit of a swindle and a dream moment right now. So I imagine we're going to see a secret passage coming up shortly.
Yeah, I mean, this is already decision time, right? Because all of that stuff I talk about playing a bit more heavily for tempo and then falling back on the card draw later once you've got through one or two glides, that's a luxury that you may have, right? Sometimes you just draw a hand like this, where this hand does nothing except draw cards. So you are kind of obligated, if you wish to play this game at all, to just go ahead and activate, combo your Swindle, and draw some cards in that position. So I think Nalguidan doing exactly the right thing.
Yeah, a bit of a lie though there, Sol, in what you were saying. I see a strict tempo play from Nalguidan. There is a 2-1 on board, so, you know, it's...
fair enough. Yep.
Wait for it, and the tempo's gone. I'm going to come down nice and early. Nalguidan might be happy about that glide at this point in the game. Honestly, he's like, well, these were all card draw cards, so now I get to put them all back and hopefully, for Nalguidan's sake, draw minions.
He did have an objectively garbage hand. Now picking up Shroud. Does get the Garrote back again. No, the hand did not improve. It did not improve, Raven.
Now he needs to Shroud for the minions he wants to dump, right? Is that where we're at in the plan?
Oh no, this is such a disaster for Nalguidan. That Guild Trader. Oh, no Octo, no contact off the Shroud either.
Another happy guildie.
And tradable Last Hope.
I think the worst part as well is Gaby didn't even, and I hope you understand what I mean, like, he didn't even aim that glide, right? It wasn't like, oh, I've seen him reduce stuff, I'm going to shuffle it back. It was, this glide benefits me, I may as well mess with my opponent as well. And it just, it's gone from bad to worse for Nalguidan.
Decision to be made here. Over completion of the quest versus, efficiency of card draw here. He only technically needs to draw one card, so he could choose to do it with the Guild Trader. But that is a fairly awkward looking Spectral Sight, I think, if it starts to go mid-hand as well. So yeah, I was about to say I'm a little bit surprised that Gaby seems to be leaning Guild Trader here. Happy to see that he did divert and go with the over completion on the Spectral Sight as well.
Yeah, I like taking it. I know there's all the efficiency of how to do the card draw, but just take an extra card for the 1 mana you spend, right? Seems like it makes...
Yeah, so I think the big kicker for me is, like, usually in those spots, I would just like to have a Spectral Sight later, right? Like, that makes sense to me. But when you're doing that, you kind of have to look at the left-hand side of your hand, right? And be like, okay, how quickly am I using an Acrobatics, a Guild Trader, an Immolation Aura, and a Fell Screen Blast? Not very quickly, right? Because that's what you're going to have to do in order to outcast the Spectral Sight on the other side. Sometimes you can be gliding as well, right? You can just say, I'll keep this Spectral Sight because I'm just going to glide. And then I'd rather have a Spectral Sight back in my deck than the extra Guild Trader, which just gets traded back in anyway.
Nalguidan secret passage into the cards he really wanted in the game, actually. Get to play the Octo and the Neophyte, but again, Neophyte probably not going to have too much to say about this turn from Gaby.
And Gaby can now choose to deny discounts here if he really wants to. He can now do it much more simply with the I-Beam draw as well, which is huge. I-Beam, of course, not affected by Cult Neophyte auras. Order of operations, aura effects, cards that reference other cards, cards that reference themselves. I-Beam always wins. There's 3 certainties in life, Raven. Death, taxes, and outcast I-Beam costing 1.
So everyone in chat's making notes about how the Hearthstone rulebook works. And I do like this because I think Gaby is going to clearly have a sense that the game isn't going the best ever for Nalguidan at this point. So keep it that way, right? Kill the Octobot, don't let any reductions happen. Yeah, it costs you a Moab, it costs you an I-Beam, but it's kind of what some of those cards are there for anyway.
Going to allow the Shadow Step potential on the Neophyte, it looks like here, if he's going to be swinging face.
Why would he do that over the hero power? What's he spending this mana on otherwise?
It's a good question, and one that I certainly could not find a satisfactory answer to, but once again, Gaby does divert.
Chooses not to spend the mana on the tradable, of course, because that isn't going to progress his quest that turn, so don't bother.
Yeah, I think the thinking was if he swung face with 2 mana, he would then draw the card, which would be 3 out of 5, right? And then if he tradable the Peddler into another tradable or double jump, that would give him Kurtrus with the 1 remaining mana at the end.
Sure.
But obviously I think that was like limited outs from that position, so in the end he just chose to deny Shadow Step potential on the other side.
Also, is this Moab just going to live?
Oh gosh, I hadn't even looked at that.
I'm just staring at it because he can't Guardian Dog Merchant it to juice the Pillager. Well, I guess, okay, he strictly could, but it wouldn't quite realistically work the way he wants it. Like, what is happening here?
No. Brain freeze!
Yeah. Okay, that was Step.
Step, yeah. Technically does work, but it's a miserable usage of resources at this point. This is just not the draw!
A whole turn to do it as well.
That is his whole turn.
Oh, the Moab lives. Lethal?
Seems unlikely, Raven, but I like where your head's at.
Pleasure
Deep breath from Gaby. Things are becoming real for the young Frenchman.
Another happy guilty.
See, if he'd have just done this with his last 2 mana, he'd have Kurtrus by now. What'd he kill a Neophyte for, you dummy?
So there is Scabs here for Nalguidan next turn. Although that's not his only option. Might be the only one that looks any good based on this hand.
It's actually a very important option right now because Gaby currently has 9 cards in hand.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
And if a Moab gets bounced back, yeah, great recognition from Gaby. Spot on, understands that he cannot risk, with no Il'gynoth in hand, he straight up cannot risk his semi-final position on Scabs bouncing a Moab back to his hand for an overdraw.
Okay, Nalguidan going with the field contact, not going to go for the Scabs, but he does have Neophyte, Shadow Step, Guardian Orc Merchant. He has things to do at last. Is this the point where Nalguidan can turn this game around? Because it's been looking grim for the majority of it so far.
It has indeed. Those Neophytes are huge because Neophyte blocks, multiple Neophytes would block Immolation Aura into Kurtrus coming down. A single Neophyte is not going to be enough to do that currently.
I've got a question, so.
Yeah.
Is this Moab going to live again?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it kind of is.
It's just a world record here at the World Championship. A Moab living on board for more than a turn.
Oh, you've never seen my Pyroblast Moags, Raven. Oh, back in the day. Oh, Moag on 2, hit him for 10. Oh, the dream.
Pyroblast Moab.
Yeah.
This is a problem, though. You're still alive.
My quest, my revenge.
Kurtrus, no doubt, coming down for Gaby. Gets to I-Beam. Guess what? The reign of terror that this Moab has been on is not ending anytime soon.
It's not. It's interesting to preserve this on board, right? Because you are technically, with your opponent having 2 Brain Freeze left in deck, you know pretty for certain that they don't have Brain Freeze in their hand currently.
Right.
But it's interesting that with the Moog on board, you kind of make killing the Kurtras a lot easier, which I think is the setup that Nalguidan is going for here with the initial ping to turn the 7-7 into a 7-6.
Is it like weirdly fair to say Gaby might just not care at this point in the game?
True.
Because if Nalguidan, I mean, Nalguidan's doing a good job, right? Gaby knows he has the Shadow Step field contact that he's obviously replayed now. He's doing a good job of recovering. He's getting towards the bottom of the deck, setting up for a combo. But with the reduction here, with the right draw or two, Gaby isn't far away from just gliding anyway, which will sort of reset a lot of this work that Nalguidan's managed to do this turn.
Yeah, that's very fair.
Choose soon.
It is starting to become a lot closer than it looked when those first few opening turns from Nalguidan came about, though. Shadow Step on field contact. Again, though, this is the biggest invitation to be Glidden that I have ever seen in my damn life, Raven. 9-card hand, Shadow Stepped field contact.
Oh, was that Ilgnop?
Okay. Currently only Moog in hand costs 2, though, which probably makes this prohibitively expensive from this point.
And the problem as well is he now can't get to that glide, right?
He can't, no.
No matter what, he cannot make that glide outcast.
Double jump does nothing.
You look like you love a good deed.
Peddler coming down on board with draw 2 more to activate the acrobatics. Illidari studies. Doesn't find it. Misses on the glide. Guild Trader now costs 1. The Ilganoth now cannot be played this turn. Glide again. Still doesn't find it.
Oh, is that just likely to be it, Sol?
I think it is. I think it is.
The fact he couldn't get to a glide is huge. I think it became fairly simple this turn. Gaby either had to draw X for lethal to win the game, or he had to glide this hand away from Nalguidan. And you can see relief for Nalguidan. I think he just spent that whole turn scared of a glide. It's not happened, and now he has all of the tools required to finish this game. Except, wait, how much spell damage does he actually need here?
It's quiet.
He needs to do 5 damage per, so he needs 3 spell damage if he's going to be getting all 6 procs off. He does have the swing of the weapon as well, but it very rarely affects a breakpoint when it's at 30.
Just because it's important to remember, double Shadow Step gone. He also used one of the Ogre Merchants earlier in the game, right?
Yeah, so he needs the Guild Trader now, which he does find. 4-mana Guild Trader can come down. He does have Prep to discount the remaining Garrot by 1, which leaves him with 1 mana free, but still 3 cards remaining in the deck from this point.
Choose soon.
Oh, Raven!
Is this just... Does he have to just risk it? It's not guaranteed, right?
I don't think it is.
Because he can prep Garrot, and then he just brain freezes.
Brain freezes.
And he either gets it or he doesn't. You see Nalguidan. Oh, no! No!
No, not like this, Raven. Absolutely under no circumstances like this.
Oh, what is going on? Someone get someone that needs it. Good internet or something, because that was literally the turn to outline it. Nalguidan had to go for the combo. He had the amount of damage required available, but the problem was 3 cards out of what will it be, the 9 that would be in the deck after the bleeds aren't bleeds, which means if he doesn't draw enough bleeds to kill him without hitting one of those like blank cards, then that's
3 out of the 7,
over.
Raven. 3 out of the 7. There's only 2 per going in there at that point. Like
The Garrots
themselves accounting for that damage, and having used the prep, whether he uses the prep to play a Garrot or prep to play Brain Freeze, I believe he then still only has 1 mana left. So he'll have Brain Freeze and Pen Fling in his hand, but he'll only be able to play one of them in that position to be able to get there. I think that's the situation. I hope it's the situation. Both players, I'm sure, massively frustrated. Emotions will be at an all-time high here in this situation. But as you can see, this is what we are looking at.
Well, Nalguidan has no other choice, right? He has to go Garrot, Brain Freeze, or Flinger, you know, whatever you want. It's all going to be how these bleeds are drawn. This is to make it to the semi-finals of the World Championship. The loser goes home. Did Nalguidan miss? He's shaking his head.
Nalguidan looks disappointed. The first draw! That was 0 bleeds! That was 0 bleeds, Raven! In one of the most ridiculous endings to a Hearthstone series I have ever seen. The plot armor is too powerful. Gaby is in the semi-finals. Commiseration to Nalguidan, commiserations to Latin America. He put up a huge fight. No one wanted to see that series end that way, we promise you. But in the end, the result speaks for itself. Even, I suppose, with the extra time that Nalguidan arguably got in that position, the result was the same. You can fairly confidently say that the didn't affect the outcome of proceedings, and Gaby was able to get over the line there in the end with what was a far closer ending to that series than it was looking like as things kicked off for Nalguidan in that road game.
Yeah, important to note, just to go on top of what you were saying, is, you know, obviously someone lost connection for a second, but Nalguidan had one single possible turn to realistically make to win the game. He did the turn, it didn't pay off, game over. Huge congratulations there to Gaby making it through to these semi-finals. Commiserations to Nalguidan, of course, but I will just say for Nalguidan, I think he played very, very well. I think that this series, as you mentioned, was a lot closer up until the last second of the match than it may have looked at points. I think Nalguidan did his best and got very, very close to making it to those semi-finals. That last turn could have gone either way, and that's how close it was. But you can see there, Gaby is joining Possessi as the players making it out of Group A. What a match, Sol. I'm glad we're not casting next, because I need to recover.
I know, I need a lie down. I need a lie down and a nice cup of cocoa. That's what I need right now. Oh my goodness, what a way to kick off the day indeed. Gaby,